Takes more than guts to be a gangster. It takes good ideas. And I hope these ideas help you. Hey, what is up, guys? We have a very important video today. This is your mob boss, GangsterKT, and I have my collared fancy dress shirt on because you gotta class it up to talk about mob war. So this video is going to be about my offensive teams, how I approach war. I'm going to talk through good counters for those teams, some of the place to put the power in those teams, etc. I'll say this isn't necessarily the best teams. I think most of these teams are the best. But I do like to have some power on defense and then some specific counters that might not be the best team that I think are worth still keeping as an offensive team. So we're going to talk about all that. I'm going to be going through 14 offensive teams. So I'm going to go through these quickly. I don't want this to be an hour and a half video. I can talk about these things forever, but I'm just going to plow through this, go through these counters, and hopefully this helps you guys for your next war. So first, let's talk about kind of how to approach war. So one thing I want to say, and I've noticed, I watch a lot of other content creator videos about war, and I'll give Dorky Dad a shout out. I think he has some of the best out there. But recently, I've noticed watching his videos, there seems to be a bigger gap between the war at the Kraken level and the war at the level I'm at. It used to be fairly close, and I thought maybe I could compete up with those guys, but that gap has definitely widened, probably because of T18 gear. Because of the value of level 95 and those different things. So I've just, I can't relate to it as much. It's phenomenal advice. I'm sure it's the best out there, but I'm struggling to apply a lot of it to the war level I'm at. I think another big part of that, at the top levels of war in the game, you're doing 10 attacks, whereas we don't always full clear. So with my love for war, I try and have 14 attacks ready if we need them. Don't always do that, but so that's a lot different, trying to plan 14 teams versus planning 10 teams. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. Overall, a few tips in general with war and building your roster. First and foremost, do what's most fun for you. Ignore the rest of the advice I'm going to give you. If you love war defense, go balls to the wall on more defense and stick yourself in security, or I'm sorry, an armory or a room like that, an important room, and enjoy going crazy with defense. It's all about just enjoying the game. So take these tips with a grain of salt. It's what I do and what I'd recommend. But again, make sure to have fun and play how you want to. So if your alliance is not full clearing, I would recommend that everyone prioritize offense. So, the easiest way to win is to full clear. I know it's efficiency based now, but it's still about getting the most rooms down. So you want to have power on defense, especially in cargo bay, armory, maybe bridge these days. But in general, I do go heavy offense. Number 3, keep your defense up to date. I try and check at least once a month. And, I watch if there's teams I'm just constantly not using on offense time and time again, and they're better than a defensive team, then I'll switch them out. The meta changes quickly in this game. New teams come around quickly, so you need to keep your defense up to date, even though I do think it's an offense-focused mode. Next tip, this guidance that I'm going to give you here in these teams I'm going through is cookie cutter. So be willing to flex. You aren't going to see the cookie cutter defense teams. You need to be able to adapt to take those. But the overall theory behind these teams will allow that and will work for that. And then number 5, again, I have 14 planned offensive teams. I don't know if I'd recommend that for everyone, but I love war. I love, try to get MVP when I can, not sack him for it. But if I get it naturally, that's great. So I do try and have 14 planned teams every war. I don't try. I do have 14 planned teams every war. And I'm going to go through those now. So again, going to go quickly, but I did set this up so you can see each of my teams here at the top. You can see how I have the power of each character, the ISOs I have on them, as well as the layout I have for that team. So most of these should be optimal in what I go with every war. So number 1 is obvious. It's the Nowhere team. They are unbelievable. They can counter everything. So the power you want to focus on that team is Nova as the legendary, obviously. And then I think the next most important character is Thor Infinity War. I'd probably put Cosmo as 3rd there, but still learning, but he's pretty important to their overall survivability. Good counters with the Nowhere, so again, they can beat literally every team right now. I try and use mine on either a Gamma are on like a gigantic APOC hold before any of the globals are down, and it's 2.2 million or something like that. That's really hard to take. As Infestation comes around, Nowhere's supposed to be the only team that can beat that easily. And then obviously the mirror match. If you see a Nowhere on defense, it's good to use Nowhere. So they can beat any other team, but it'd be a huge waste to not use them on one of those gigantic teams. So Gamma, Pockhold, Infestation, or Nowhere. But build your Nowhere. They're the best war team in the game. Number 2 is Gamma. So a little older team, but still by far and away the number 2 best war team after Nowhere. So you want to focus your power and Gamma on Red Hawk first, and then I would say Hawk and She-Hawk are kind of tied for second. She-Hawk's not that great, but you need her kit things to land, and then you need her to survive. And she's usually the character that you target if you're attacking this besides just the mirror match. So that's where you want to have the power. So good counters. I try and always use mine on a Gamma mirror match. I have a video a few months ago with how to reliably win that mirror match because it is a little tricky. But they work great there. They take out, again, pretty much any other team like Nowhere. Big Apoc holds, other Dark holds, other meta teams that you're struggling with if maybe they throw a bunch of meta tunes on one team. The one exception or two exceptions is they will not take a huge Infestation or a huge Nowhere. So be careful against those two. But besides that, Gamma is the team to build. Number 3 that I use is Darkhold Apocalypse. So this may be a slight waste. Having Apocalypse with Darkhold, but he just makes this team so much better and be able to reliably counter such stronger teams. So where you want to focus the power, obviously Apocalypse. After that, I think Morgan. And then number 3, it took me a while to get here, but I actually think Wong's the most important person to have big on that team. With that said, I'm not saying run out and go power up your Wong. It's an older character, but that is where I'd focus. Good counters for Darkhold Apoc. So they can punch up huge on Dormhold teams. They can punch up even bigger on just straight Darkhold teams. They can win the mirror match, but it's a little dicey. So I'm still kind of learning how to optimize that, and you have to be careful. But if you have to take out an Apoc hold, the mirror match can do it. So they can really take out, again, any team besides the Infestation, Gamma, or the Nowhere. So go run and build your Darkhold Apocalypse. Number 4 is the War Dogs. So they're probably my favorite war team. I'm focused the power here. They're the only character I put in all capitals. I'm still crazy obsessed with Nakia. As you can see, I have her 7 red stars, level 95. Did those forever ago, as soon as I could. So she's the main one you need big, and it's a pretty big gap between number 2 being Black Panther. So good counters here. You can see it's quite a list. They can take almost any team, again, except, those top meta defense teams, Gamma, Nowhere, Infestation we've been talking about. War Dogs are specifically a great use for a big punch up on Black Order. And that's really where I try and prioritize using mine. You do have to be careful if it's a big Thanos and you're in security, or you're in a room that has defense down because of security. Thanos can potentially one-shot your tune. So you need a big Nakia if you're going to try and take out a big BO with the defense down debuff on. They also can punch across, and it's a little dicey, but Darkhold, Dormhold, Darkhold Apocalypse. These were War Dogs was who I was using against Darkhold Apocalypse for quite a while until they just started getting ridiculously big. But if you see small ones of those, use your War Dogs, focus down Morgan, you'll be able to take them out. They can beat Hero Asgards, Unlimited, Infinity Watch, Weapon X, Secret Avengers, Young Avengers. Again, basically any team out there except the big boys. But the best use, I think, is either against a punch across with a tough Darkhold team or going against a big Black Order. So number 5 is Tangled Undying. And I know at the highest levels of war, this is probably a waste and you separate these and use them different. But I find a lot of value of having them together. I think we need to focus the power here. Number 1 is Spider-Weaver is the best character and just a great character to have big, but best one on this team. And then number 2 is Hela. You can see how small my zombie Iron Man is. I'd love to have red stars on him or have him a lot bigger, but as long as your Hela's big, he still does the work. Not as much work, but he still does exactly what he needs to do. So great counters for this team. I'll usually see on more defense a big Tangle Web mirror match where they'll maybe put Tangle Web, Eternals, Dormammu together, and this team can counter that stuff. And it's because with Greg on the team and having Undying there as well, when they're 2099 alts at the start, he gives you that extra 10% because of Greg dying. So your Spider Weaver will always go first. You'll be able to stun their Weaver. The charges will make the Eternals alts miss at the start. You can control Dormammu with Zombie Iron Man. It's just unbelievable. They can take out those counters so easily. They can easily take out Eternals. They can easily take out just a regular Tangled Web team, even without the other meta on there. And then they're just great against, kind of any random team you see on defense that needs to be controlled. So like I said earlier, you have to stay flexible and be able to adapt to weird defenses. And any one where really controlling that team will win you the match, these are a great option to use, but a very valuable option. So don't use it lightly. Make sure you get good value out of it. Number 6 is the Underworld. So probably after the War Dogs, my favorite war team. And you can see this is my smallest attack team by far. I have Taskmaster pretty big at level 91 and T16. But once you have him big with all his assists and everything he does, his ult at the start, you don't need the other guys as big. So focus the power definitely on Taskmaster. Number 2 would be Mr. Negative. And then if you use this against Dormammu meta teams, it is important that your Green Goblin is big enough that his special will kill a stealth Dormammu that's going to have less than half health. So that's an intentional situation to get in on the main counter I use this team. And I did have to put some extra power in Green Goblin a couple months ago when the level 95 came out and teams started getting a lot bigger, just to make sure I could still kill that Dormammu with the Green Goblin special. So good counters to use this. You'll see a lot of times, a guy getting creative on defense, putting Dormammu, Weaver, 2099 and Eternals, or maybe they throw Doom in there instead of 2099. And this team can just waste all those, double punch-ups, like punching up 800,000 because of how fast they are. So if they have Eternals and Doom, that's the hardest because you can't let Doom ult and you do have to control Icarus. But it's winnable. You can still do it. I do it all the time. I think I have a video when I first started on my account showing that. With a huge punch-up. So they work on Infinity Watch, Tangled Web, Weapon X, YA. Again, pretty much any team out there except those big boys. But their real key to victory is how fast they go. And they can counter big Darkholds. You probably need your other characters a little bigger for that counter. That's not one I go after unless it's a small Darkhold. But they can work there as well. Underworld or Gangster. They're still one of my favorites, even though they're a little older. Coming in at number 7 is Death Seed. So where you want to focus the power on Death Seed is mainly Archangel. I'd say for PvP, so War and Crucible, I think Nemesis is the second most important. If you're building your team mainly raid focused but want to use them in War, I do think Dark Beast is second most important for PvE game modes to build big. So the reason I have these guys at number 7, I had mainly just been using them for a mirror match, and everyone has this team, everyone has it huge, so you see it all the time. So that's a really valuable use, and it's extremely reliable, opening with Archangel special instead of his ult to clear the blinds. But the best place to use this team is when you see a team similar to the one I just talked about when I was discussing Underworld, but when that team has Kestrel. So Dorm, Tangled Web, Chavez, and Kestrel is a very popular team out there. And that team doesn't work, or it hurts, and it's hard to use Underworld against it because of Kestrel controlling the summons. So you lose a lot of power. But Death Seed can punch up huge on that team. It's hard to explain how it really works. I was shocked, but it's very reliable. Works for me every time. So I'll try and see if I can use them on one of those big Dorm, Tangled Web, Chavez, Kestrel teams because they're really hard to take out without Death Seed or without one of your top 3 offense teams. But if not, then I'll try and find a punch up against another Death Seed, and it's a great counter there. They also do work against Tangled Web because of the counters and being able to get rid of the charges on Weaver quickly. And then any team that summons, because of Archangel's passive ability and rewinding speed and getting extra damage when you kill an enemy. If there's a Hela or like a Fury with a bunch of summons, Death Seed can be really good against those teams and abuse the summons. So number 8 is an oldie but a goodie, and that is Weapon X. So the main power you want on this team is a Mega Red and then Lady Deathstrike. Again, it's an old team. I would not run out and upgrade these characters at all unless you just really want that extra boost and more power. But they're still amazing. Where I really like to use them is actually on Dorm for Hire, and it's a match you have to practice a decent amount. Again, I have a video at the very start of my channel showing this with no talking or anything if you want to see it. But it is a very reliable counter if you play it right. It can go wrong easily if you don't. But that's a tough team to beat, and being able to use Weapon X to take out that team is huge value. Same thing with YA Dorm. Omega Red just counters Dorm so well because of being able to flip everything on that alt. You get a vulnerable on him, so he does the follow-up striker attack, and he can usually take out Dormammu. And so it's just amazing against different Dorm composition teams. They work on new warriors, on rebirth, on invaders. They're just still so fast in war. They can get ahead of all those teams and are a very powerful war offense team. So number 9 is A-Force, and specifically I use A-Force Doom still, and I say number 9 for now because as you've seen, this team is getting a rework and should be one of the best war teams going forward with the new 5th member, that it's also the member of the Secret Defender team, so that'll be interesting. But they're going to be amazing. But for right now, I've been mainly using this as a YA counter. Where you need to focus the power is on Spider-Woman and then Captain Marvel second. I still have Doom level 87, as you can see there. Haven't put a ton into him after T16 because I want him to pop. You need him to be able to survive, but you want him to pop, so a lot of extra health on him might not be helpful. So again, good counters with this. I mainly do this against Young Avengers. There's still tons of Young Avenger teams you're seeing every war out there. They can punch up huge. It's very reliable. Even if the Young Avengers has Doom, you have to play a little more carefully, but your A-Force Doom will still counter that easily. A-Force can also counter heroes for hire with their mechanics that they have, the heal block, the thing where you can't remove debuffs, that ability that's spacing my head right now. But they're still very valuable there. It is a little dicey, but they can be used there. But again, I just try and mainly use these on a big YA I see, knowing that's a reliable counter and knowing there will be a different use for them here in the soon. They will be war meta going forward. So number 10 is probably the oldest team on this list, but still amazing, and that is Affinity Watch. So on this team, I like to focus my power the most on Phyla-Vell, and that's because she provides the drain mechanic that just really keeps this team moving, so you need her to survive. She also does amazing damage. After that, I think Adam Warlock and Gamora are kind of a toss-up, but I'd probably favor Warlock if I had to between the two. So good counters for Infinity Watch still. A lot of times I'll use them on a mirror match because it's hard to find other teams that take them out efficiently. They do work well against Tangled Web. You open with the Nebula special, so you get the counters up to get rid of those charges quickly, but they work well there. They can counter Death Seed as well. It's a little dicey. You need to get Dark Beast down ASAP, but I think people used to do that in Crucible a lot, and that does work in War as well. They counter new warriors incredibly well, and really any team that relies on applying a lot of debuffs at the start, Infinity Watch will just destroy that team because of the safeguard and the immunity. At the very start, they don't get any of those debuffs and they can just keep moving. So another great team to have. Again, I don't know if I'd still build Infinity Watch at this point, although with how valuable they still are in Crucible, I'd maybe build them over Weapon X now. But these are old teams, so great to have. I still use them, but probably not worth building at this point. So number 11 out of 14. So Secret Avengers, Kestrel, and Fury. Maybe other ways to break this up more effectively, but I still love using this. And again, it's kind of a function of just knowing like what teams you're going to see on every war, time in, time out. And I see this team on defense all the time. It's an extremely reliable mirror match. And that's because your Fury can open with the special and give speed up. The computer will open, or the phone, whatever, will open with Fury's alt, which is the summon, so they don't get speed up. So now all of a sudden your Captain Sam and the rest, and the rest of your team is going first. Additionally, Kestrel makes it so those summons don't come. So you'll end up getting summons later that they don't have, and it's just an extremely reliable punch-up counter. On this team, you want to focus the power mainly on Kestrel, and I would say on Sam second. Fury is definitely a character to get huge. There's no question. You can see I have him 95, T17, 7 red star, but that's because of raids mainly and how valuable he is there. The power is nice in War, but his summons aren't nearly as big, and so you mainly just use him for that speed up on the special in War. So good counters here. These work very well against Rebirth, being able to get the defense down up, so when Captain America taunts, you can still be doing damage and taking out Peggy there. It also works very well in a mirror match, like I said, and then works very well against invaders. So this can work against a lot of other teams, not the top teams by any means, but these are typically the main 3 places I look to use them for an efficient win in war. Number 12 is the Unlimited team. So on this team, wow, I messed up on Focus the Power, so apologies for that, guys. Focus the Power here on this team, I definitely think Gambit's the most important, and actually the one team where the Horseman themselves isn't the one you want the biggest out of the 4 Horsemen team. So I would focus the power on Gambit first, and then obviously on Rogue second. So good counters here. I almost always use this as a mirror match. You see these in almost every room, or every opponent's, 10 rooms on defense. You see it all the time. They always have huge ones. So this can take out of a lot of other teams. It can take out BO on small punch-ups. If there's any team that's just relying on like one player, and Rogue can completely eliminate that one player for the most part. They're normally a good counter there. But I do use them on a mirror match. I put Cable in instead of Phantom X, which makes that a very reliable counter. I think I did a 400k punch-up in war against an unlimited mirror match not too long ago with that counter. So that is typically where I use it. So getting to the bottom of the barrel here, but number 13 is actually a pretty important team, and that is the Dark Hunters. I know Mordo is the 5th on this now. I never build him up, so I've actually been using Falcon. Namor is an option as well, but just someone, if you don't have Mordo, to give you that speed advantage for the second set of turns with either Falcon or Namor. So focusing the power here, I think Morbius is who you want the biggest on the team in general. Although if you're using this version of it, you really need Falcon to be big enough to survive an attack from Colleen. So if Colleen on an assist one-shots your Falcon once that blind's gone before Falcon can go, this counter doesn't work and the match is over. So if I'm in a room impacted by security and I see a really big Colleen, I will not use this counter on it because I know my Falcon has to survive and I don't really want to put more power in Falcon at this point. But I think Elsa would be number 3 or number 2 if you aren't using Falcon. So good counters, there is one reason to have this team, and that is because of the damn Heroes for Hire. They're still around. They're so old. They're easy to beat, but you have to plan for them. Like, they're easy to beat with certain teams, but besides that, they're still an absolute nightmare. And so, I feel like it's everyone's responsibility to take out at least one Heroes for Hire per war, knowing you'll see one in every opponent that you face. So I make sure to keep this team so I can take it. It works very well against any of the Heroes for Hire variants with Absorbing Man, with Red Guardian, or any of the tank tricks. The one place this doesn't work is against Captain Sam. It can work. It depends on the size of your Morbius, but since he has the deflects for their team at the start, he can make it so a lot of those blinds don't hit, and all of a sudden that key part of this fight against Heroes for Hire is gone. So again, important for war. Everyone should be taking out one H4H. You can use Weapon X to do that. You can use A-Force, but this is the most efficient way to do it and what I try and do every war. Last but least, number 14, so Bionic Avengers. So this team is fading fast, as everyone knows, with the special rules against them in the incursion raid. But we still, at least at the level I'm in at war, see pretty good sized web warriors all over the place. You could beat them with almost any team on this list. There's no question. But that'd be a waste of those teams. So I do keep the Bionic Avengers in my back pocket. If I ever see like 1.2, 1.3 million web warriors, I'll jump on it. Or just the smaller web warriors that needs cleared to help out the alliance. They're very reliable for that. If I'm not doing 14 attacks in war and I'm only doing 12 or maybe 13, this is usually the one that I skip and don't use. I don't really even think it's worth putting them on defense, but do have them in the back pocket just for that web warrior counter. Please do not invest in this team, but if you're looking to, Deathlock I think is the most important one to invest in, and Hulkbuster would be number 2. So that is it for my 14 offense teams. I did want to show you guys a little bit of my defense, so some of my notable defense teams, and I couldn't help it when I put this in to my video preparation. It gave me these default pictures, and I thought they were hilarious, so I actually wanted to leave them in. But I do have new warriors on defense. They're easy to beat. They're a pretty big team because I'm big for Crucible, so that helps. I'm just seeing a big power on defense. And then, they can maybe throw people off with all those debuffs if people don't plan for them appropriately. So they're good on offense, but nothing crazy. So I do think that's good to have them on defense there. Masters of Evil, additionally, so obviously I could take Kang and put him somewhere on offense to make it a lot better. I probably will do that over the next month or two as I keep evolving these teams, and I'll share that when I do. But for right now, I just have my big Masters of Evil on defense. It always demands a pretty tough counter from the enemy, and I think people still don't maybe have that fight down quite as well as some others, and a chance for more mistakes there. The one meta team I do have on defense is Dorm, Quicksilver, Eternals, and Loki. So as you know, Loki gives the speed to Cersei, so that can throw people off if they aren't accounting for that. He gives it to Mystic characters, so it also goes to Quicksilver. So, not too hard to take out. It does demand kind of a meta offense team, but that can really throw some people off. Want to have something to trip people up on defense. And those were players I was using more plug and play on offense. But, a lot of wars I was finishing without using my Dormammu. Which is probably a mistake, but it just depends on what teams you see, or maybe without using Quicksilver, who's one of the best characters in the game. So when I'd seen that a few wars, I said, all right, I got to make sure I'm using these guys every war. So I did put that team together on defense. And then lastly, I do have my small infestation on defense. So I don't have big time yet. I'll get him next Sunday. So we'll add him, but have the guys there that I can. I did take them all to, green ISO 5 because I have basically infinite of it at this point, but haven't put any power in. But still worth putting there, especially when big time comes out to trip some people up. So guys, I hope that was helpful for you. Went through it pretty quickly, but still a longer video. Again, I just think that war is a lot different right now, and there's kind of different levels of war, and a lot of the advice I'm seeing out there that I've relied on that's the best advice out there just wasn't applying to my level of war anymore. So I did want to show you guys what I'm doing, how I manage war. I'm still trying to get a war where I get 80 million damage. I never cheat on it. I won't go attack like 10 1.5 million web warriors or anything like that just to get fake damage, and not sure if that'd be enough, but I'm getting close. I'm going to get that 80 million one time here sooner or later when the cards align by using these teams. So best game mode out there. Be the boss of your war. Use this advice, and I really hope that it'll help you win the next war. So as always, I give you my word that this is the best advice I have. All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. Peace.